you got some takes, Viva. How you doing, man?
Not bad, Benny. I was listening to you with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I remembered the whole thing with Ehud Barak. The most insane thing is that he said, I didn't know that Jeffrey Epstein had been convicted of solicitation of child prostitution. And I'm like, the former prime minister of Israel, with all of his security, doesn't know who he's doing business with. Holy crab apples. It was implausible, to say the least.
So here's a quote from an article that you sent along to our producers. The title, the headline of the article from Business Insider is Israel's former prime minister says he visited convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in private Caribbean island. Oh, but he never partied with him. Oh, okay, got it. That's a great defense there. On Sunday, Barak defended his business ties with Epstein on Israeli TV, saying that he had no idea that the wealthy financier was convicted of prostitution involving a minor in 2008.
How stupid does anybody think that people are? You do background checks on babysitters, criminal background checks. The former prime minister of Israel is not going to have his own intelligence to go deep on people he's in business with, visiting on. It's laughably stupid, but the problem is nobody believes what's going on. So the question is, how do you address that? I mean, that's the conundrum for Trump. Interrupting a question from a reporter, a legitimate, bona fide question from a reporter, that only goes so far. Momentarily, that might pause the question, but that is the Streisand effect. And we still haven't gotten an answer yet as to how this memo is undated, unsigned, uploaded after the Axios leak, and no one's spoken to the memo.
I mean, does that even stand any type of precedent? Like, if it's unsigned and undated and nobody knows who wrote it, well, can you just write it off? I mean, at what point does it stop being real? I know that they've copped to it and said, yeah, it is our memo. What the hell is going on here? It all seems so wildly strange.
It almost seems deliberate or intentional. I don't know if it's to fracture a base to make now the portion of the Trump, I call it MAGA. I mean, MAGA is a silly word for it, but the portion of the Trump populist base that believes there's more to the Epstein story than just an individual trafficking to himself. There are witnesses talking about being exploited, being sexually abused by other people. Yes. And nobody's going to let it go, certainly not after the decade that we've been through, and certainly not after what the very members of the FBI now had said prior to becoming deputy director and director. And it's not like you can't walk away from those things. I believe them then. They haven't said anything now, but you're basically, my theory is that if you wanted to undermine Trump's FBI, this is how you go about doing it. You leak an unsigned, undated memo to Axios, only then to, I guess, out of compulsion, update it to the website the next day. Bondi has said things that contradict this memo. She can't speak to it. She can't sign off on it. And now people are looking at Trump's FBI as though it's run by two people who have been peddling Epstein conspiracies for the last 5 years. It's a good way to undermine an entire administration, whoever's doing it.
So you think that this is actually an internal op?
What do I think?
For discrediting, and it's working, man. It's well done, boy. These people are good at what they do.
Well, you don't need to believe you don't need to believe the specific theories to posit what can be going on. Either it's true or it's not true. If it's true, it means a bunch of people have been wrong for years. If it's not true, but the thing is this: it also can't be true based on what the administration, what the media has been reporting for years. Whether or not it's a list per se. People know you don't go to jail for trafficking when you're not trafficking to anybody but yourself. The argument wasn't even that it was only traffic for Epstein. The argument was that I guess they didn't get anybody else. Who knows? So there can only be so many theories here. Either it's the absolute truth and everybody should accept it and move on, which is probably not going to happen and is probably not the case. Then the question is Trump, in his willingness to always want to own a situation and not look like he's getting embarrassed or played, that would be the response. You'd get the same response out of him from the reporter. Someone comes up with a question that sort of calls into question his administration, and he wants to own it and look like he's not getting thrown under the bus or played. And so he says, yeah, I'm owning this. How can you ask a question on this when we have bigger issues to talk about? But the bottom line, Bondi looks like she misspoke, and her trying to walk her way out of the Fox News interview, I don't think it's going to work on anybody who appreciates semantics when the question to her was, it looks like the DOJ is going to release the list of Epstein clients. Is that really going to happen? And her answer is, the file sitting on my desk. Yes, there were other files, but the question was quite specific. And there's no list. I'm not sure if there's a list. Everybody knew what that proverbial list was. She's got to walk that back. Patel's got to walk back his statement from a year and a half ago that Bill Gates is on the list. He's, panicking that the list is going to be released. And now it looks like, if they're calling us conspiracy theorists, then I guess it means that the FBI is being run by the same Epstein conspiracy theorists.
What is the out here, right? So now that we've identified the problems and given voluminous amounts of information and evidence that there is a massive cover-up here, the American people are wise to that. What is the out now? What must happen? Some are suggesting a special counsel or perhaps like a special investigative unit that has been set up with special access and classification. What do you think, Viva?
This is a good question. It's easy to identify problems, not easy to propose solutions. The easiest solution is transparency. If what they're saying is right, then show the evidence above and beyond an unsigned, undated memo that was leaked to the most leftist anti-Trump organization on earth. Show the evidence. Promise transparency. Be transparent about it. Nobody wants to see videos of underage pornography. Nobody wants to see that. And if those videos exist, by the way, then they said he had downloaded videos, or suggesting that he was in possession of downloaded materials. The question is, was that child pornography created by or with Epstein associates? So unfortunately, nobody wants to see the CP. But who was involved in it? How was it manufactured? Where was it procured from? And are people going to jail for that? But there's been zero transparency, and now questions being raised about that video itself, the 10 hours showing that Epstein wasn't visited at any point in time in his cell. There's questions as to whether or not it was even focused on the right cell. Set aside the 1 minute deleted thing. If they're going to go and off Epstein, it might take more than 1 minute. I wouldn't put all the stock in that missing minute. But if you have a video on its face that shows Epstein was in his cell uninterrupted for 10 hours after having been on suicide watch, but oddly removed from suicide watch, I've still got questions. Is that normal protocol? Is that typical? Or is that itself part of the conspiracy? But now people are suggesting that the video might have not even been pointed at the right cell, and therefore it's totally irrelevant. But no one's really spoken to the video yet. They just release it and expect everybody to say, oh, okay, here's 10 hours of showing at its most charitable nobody visiting on Epstein, which is itself very suspicious, and then move on and shame people into asking questions a day after this unsigned, undated memo is leaked to Axios. It's crazy.
That is the chief insult to the base and to the American people and to those who follow this case and who have followed it for years. Man, the media is digging up interviews we've done from like 3 years ago, with Cash and Bongino on this, and they're all going viral, and it's quite telling. Some of the answers have aged well, and some of them have aged very poorly. But that seems to be the chief insult here, Viva, which is that they rushed this. Why? That is probably the largest red flag for me, is that they somehow thought that releasing it in the dark of night on a Sunday after a 4th of July weekend, a series of historic President Trump W's, and this is, by the way, tanked, President Trump's approval rating. He was just about to pass Barack Obama, right? And this is according to Rasmussen, Mark Mitchell up with the numbers this morning. I don't want this. I'm a supporter of President Trump and his administration. I know a lot of these people. But that seems to be the biggest red flag for me, Viva, is that this has been done so sloppily. Even if you there's a gun to your head, you must come to this conclusion. You have to come to this conclusion, okay? He's intel. He's so intel. We can't let it go. You don't release it like this. You don't. You do it. You do it in in the exact opposite way, right? In a much more transparent, an explainer, a big press conference. People can ask questions. On its face, that is probably the single most insulting thing, is how this was leveraged against the American public.
Well, assuming it was done deliberately, if this were intended to be a leak to undermine and humiliate the Trump administration, but you don't want to admit that you got humiliated, or that that you were the pigeon, or what is it? The target here. You own it. You own it like Trump is trying to own it. This reeks to me of the same type of leak that you had after the Iranian strikes, where a classified memo that should not have been released, which undermined the administration or at least the effectiveness of the strikes, was released. And then they say, well, it's top secret, classified. It should not have been released, but it's low confidence in any event, so disregard it. This strikes me as being the same type of sabotage that potentially you have activists internally who are trying to leak a memo, which maybe someone drafted, in an attempt to humiliate and sabotage the Trump presidency. And I should preface this also. I don't know Patel personally. I know Bongino personally. You can go back to my tweets on this. He was, and I firmly believe, the best pick on earth for deputy director. I also believe that he doesn't have the same freedom that he had before becoming an employee of the state to share his personal opinions. And right now he's got a job to do and he's got a boss to answer to. Patel, I don't know personally, but total faith in Patel as well. Bondi, I never knew personally, or either way, was neither here nor there, would have preferred Gates. But this criticism is not intended to take down Trump. Trump needs to be the president. He needed to be the president. I've been one of the most vocal supporters is a silly word. I say it was an act of God that Trump even was alive the day of the election, based on what we saw, in Butler. It's divine that to some extent he's here. That doesn't mean that you're not going to criticize things that they need to understand that this is going to hurt the administration. You can have faith in Trump. That doesn't mean that you're going to close your eyes and accept what you understand to be fundamentally unbelievable. And so that's where we're at. They should have done things way differently if this is the truth. Release, and by the way, like you say, if they can't release the truth because it would reveal either that the U.S. has been blackmailing other countries, which would lead to potential global war. Like if people find out the U.S. has been using underhanded, nefarious techniques, although I suspect most people think that anyhow, for global policy, that could lead to global conflict. And there might be a national interest reason for burying this story. Do it better and at least get a Machiavellian person in the administration to do it in a way that doesn't look like you're treating the base, the most loyal, diehard supporters, like idiots, because that's what it looks like. And that's what people feel like right now.
Yes. And after Bindergate, it was already like a wound that had been ripped open. Nobody liked seeing these loyal Trump supporters treated like that and humiliated. And that, of course, is what's going to happen when you hand them a binder marked the Epstein files, right? And the whole thing is just incompetent. I err on the side of incompetence, Viva, instead of malevolence. But either way, it's indistinguishable at some level. And this is indistinguishable.
Absolutely. And if your purpose here were to sabotage, mock, and discredit those so-called influencers, but I'll call them commentators, what would you have done differently? I had Liz Wheeler on. Liz Wheeler's the blonde lady on the bottom left. I had her on afterwards because they wanted to tell their story. They looked like willing participants in propagating disinformation when they were the victims of a rollout that was either by design or accidentally absolutely humiliating. That's DC Drano on the left. Like these are people who have been the most staunch supporters of President Trump and the administration.
There's one in this picture that I think is particularly damaging, which is Scott. You can't argue that there isn't a more successful activist on planet Earth at registering Republican voters than Scott Pressler. It is impossible to argue. So the fact that they bundled him up in this massive discredit operation is sinister.
It's a Scott Pressler arguably pulled Pennsylvania for Trump.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
I say arguably only to give a little room of doubt there. Absolutely. And by the way, it doesn't just make them look like peddlers of disinformation. It also makes them look like they're somehow rejoicing in the celebrity that comes from the sinister underbelly of the Epstein files. So whether or not this was by accident or by design, what is happening now is in the wake of this. And this didn't have to happen, Bindergate. After Bindergate, we're told it's going to be rolled out in phases, and now no rollout. That's it. Did I say that? Oh, no, another misspeak. I meant phases. There's one phase, and it's no phase. So, and for people saying
yes, it says phase 1 on the binder. Well, what does that mean?
No, it's insanity, and it really is an insult to the most ardent, populist supporters of Trump and his administration, because ultimately it makes the administration look either incompetent or corrupt, and neither are good at this point. So, and it's what difference does it make anymore? First of all, that partially took down Hillary Clinton. So if that's your best defense, understand how that worked out in the past. What difference does it make at this point? Will not fly with anybody. You have had the most prolific sex trafficker, arguably in American history, but at least thousands, maybe tens of thousands over decades, involving prominent political figures, Ehud Barak, Prince Andrew, and now, after all of this decades of never let this story go, it goes deeper than anybody thinks, because it does. here's a nice little bow. He killed himself, and there's no list, and there's no blackmail, and go on with your day, and don't be a conspiracy theorist and push this issue anymore. I mean, it's sinister enough to make even the most optimistic person have serious questions.
I never miss a chance to shout out the team that we have here. I'm so proud of the company that we've built, and I want to show you something, Viva, that perhaps you've never seen. A snap of our executive producer, ALX, I know you know him, doing the one thing that should have been done on this binder, due diligence.
Yep.
So instead of dancing with it and grinning with it, and again, I don't fault them. They were they were trotted out in front of the world's media. What are you going to do, right? Everyone's yelling at them. But ALX, I just wanted to shout out for my boy. ALX held it down, looked through the files, and immediately texted me, "There's nothing here."
Well, but
we did more than the DOJ did. This is ALX doing more work than the DOJ did.
If I'm not mistaken, what ALX is looking at there is the cover sheet that literally says, and I saw this before the whole thing went public, but yeah, I don't know what you can, I don't want to get anybody in trouble for leaking information that they got there. The cover sheet said, you're not getting anything new in here. And so, but they hadn't even seen the cover sheet before that photo was taken. And it looked like a photo op, but from what Liz Wheeler told me and from what Jack Posobiec said, two of the most ardent Trump supporters out there, they didn't know that there was going to be photographers out there, so they're caught off guard. And by the way, just to highlight something else, 2 days ago on the Bongino Report Rumble channel, now I forgot her name, Haley. Haley's talking about the fact that none of this is going to cut it. Nobody believes this, and it doesn't jive with the last decade of information, of intelligence. And so it's just this
on Bongino's own channel.
Well, it's on the Bongino Report, and I shared the clip, but and then everyone's like, well, now they're on the inside, so they've seen the evidence. I sincerely believe they had more reliable evidence from the outside when it was coming from leakers within than they have right now after having been given a file from the FBI that they are now investigating for corruption. So you try to make that make sense. They're investigating Comey and Brennan for corruption with the Russiagate thing. We'll see if they get to any charges before the statute of limitations is up, like Patel had advised on Rogan. They're investigating the same FBI for criminal misconduct that they are now relying on what was handed over to them, or at least what they think was handed over to them. So even their own arguments don't square off within the four corners of this thesis that we're expected to swallow. And it's discouraging because Trump has to succeed. If the Democrats take it in 2026 at the midterms, and if they take it in 2028, you'll have staved off a commie Kamala for 4 years, but you might end up with Zoran Mamdani in 2028 or AOC. So this is not criticism for the sake of criticism. This is criticism for the sake of construction. And they better start fixing things, because when you lose they didn't lose Jack Posobiec yet, but when Owen Schroyer's, InfoWars, Posobiec, Steve Bannon, when they start leveling this criticism publicly, you'd better listen, because you're not going to shame them into silence.
Find me a Trump supporter that does not deeply love and listen to on a daily basis. A Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Steve Bannon. Fox News has been going quite hard on this, actually. There were a number of segments last night. Some of them used our old clips, and it's always an honor, and we're always thankful for it. It's the work that we do here on this program. But Fox, Laura Ingraham did like a 20-minute segment that used multiple clips from this program to talk about what a nightmare this is. And it's tough love. I'm not doing it as a criticism. I'm the biggest fan of this administration and their accomplishments. And they had a historic series of W's, and they decided to destroy it with this, which is insane to me. And they're typically smarter than that.
And the timing of it comes,
Yes, I agree with your contention. Was it a leak? Was it a leak? Was it a Dobbs? Is this a Dobbs decision style leak that is intended to harm and hurt? It does beg a serious question, Viva.
It comes in the wake of the Iran-Israel strikes and purported ceasefire, a day before Netanyahu's in America. I mean, these dots may not connect, but the dots are there, and you can't blame people for seeing them. And people also tend to forget, the biggest mistake of Trump's first term was hiring and relying on the wrong people. There is nothing more destructive than a yes man within an administration or a business. When I used to be a lawyer, and I used to represent a lot of restaurants, and the owners would say, there's nothing worse than a client who's unhappy leaving without telling you, because they don't tell you, they don't come back, and you lose the business. The ones that tell you, at the very least, care enough, you can internalize what their criticism is, make your restaurant better, and try to get them back later on. But the worst thing that anybody can do right now is either just be a blind yes man, or just give up entirely and say, I'm washing my hands of this because my voice isn't being heard.
Your voice was heard ALX says thank you for that shout out. That is the cover letter. We actually have photographic proof of this. We'll put it up on the screen right now. You called it Viva. This was the cover letter there from Pam Bondi to Kash Patel, directing him to conduct an immediate investigation in order to get to the truth. And that'll have the full Justice Department support for that investigation. Can we zoom out?
This is in the wake of when there were allegedly files being disappeared from the SDNY office, and either Patel or Bondi had to issue another letter there to say that is this the same letter? I think. No, this is the one that was the cover sheet for the binder.
There's the cover sheet for the binder.
But no, I mean, this is at the same time that the FBI field office at the most corrupt judicial district in America, the SDNY, was allegedly removing boxes, and they had to get a letter either from Bondi or Patel. I forget who it was at the time. It's crazy, and you cannot understand. I mean, you try to make sense of it, and the only way you're going to make sense of it is by either, solidifying conspiracy theories or coming up with new ones. That some would say this is Netanyahu, Israel, dog walking Trump. Others are saying Trump is using the blackmail material potentially to negotiate, compel global settlements for whatever. I mean, how you interpret it sort of depends on your blinders or the glasses that you're viewing this through. But one way or the other, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't jive with a decade of information, and it doesn't jive with statements of this very administration as recently as 3 months ago and as going far back as 5 years ago.
You can go find the clip. Find the clip. I heard. I said it while Trump was in Saudi Arabia. We looked through the manifest. We looked through the manifest live while we were waiting for Trump, and I said, "Oh, let's go read through the manifest." And there were a bunch of heads of various, chip companies and things like that, right? AI companies. And way down to the bottom of the list, on the third page, was Reid Hoffman. And I said, "What the bloody hell is Reid Hoffman? Mr. King of Trump lawfare, put Trump in prison, celebrate when Trump got shot," which he did, according to Peter Thiel. What the hell is Reid Hoffman doing on this manifest? How is Reid Hoffman flying on, Air Force One, Saudi Arabia? This is insane. Reid Hoffman, of course, a very close and friendly Epstein associate.
No, well, it was Elon Musk who said Reid Hoffman is sweating bullets. Yeah. Of course,
yeah.
Elon Musk also just said Trump was on the list, Bannon's on the list, so he might be burning his own credibility.
But I'm saying, we said it live on the stream. We were like, oh, wait a second, is Trump playing the leverage play of all leverage plays, right? Bring this guy along, in the middle of the ocean, call him up to his office on Air Force One and say, listen, you son of a bitch, I got you dead to rights, and are you going to behave, right? This guy funded everything against Donald Trump. He funded election rigging. He funded all the insurrection. He funded all what's the crazy lady's name? Carol.
E. Jean Carroll. Her best-selling book now.
Yeah. He published all of it. Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm like, wow, Trump is operating on a level. So maybe.
Well, but then the question: if the base ever found out that the administration was using this information for its own national benefit, would people even be cool with that? It's doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. Unsure. But one thing, by the way, also not for nothing, it's virtually a year to the day since the Butler assassination, and what do we get? 5 or 6 Secret Service agents get a 42-day unpaid summer vacation. I mean, there's ways to roll out the stuff that's going to be bad in a way that people will understand, but at least not be caught off guard. Yeah. This secret, the 10 to 42 days unpaid leave, and then they're going to come back to lowered positions when they come back. And on the one hand, my initial reaction is, whoop-de frickin' do, they just got paid they just got an unpaid vacation in summer.
Insane.
Flip side is I say, okay, fine, they're going to be humiliated. They're going to come back to demoted positions. Maybe this is the way of weeding out the incompetence or the corruption. But this looks like a Kevin Kleinsmith, FBI lawyer who falsified evidence under the Carter Page FISA warrant, the previous corrupt criminal FBI, getting 12 months probation and 400 hours community service for falsifying evidence. So it again looks like there's never any consequences when it's the government. If it's a lowly citizen or the plebs, they go to jail for many, many years. But this is all coming at the, one big poop storm at a bad time because, yes, Trump had massive wins, massive successes. Even if you were skeptical, cynical, nervous about the Iranian strikes, the fact that there was a ceasefire that seems to be holding was a win. And now you got this, which is a distraction. And then in the wake of this distraction, the crumbs to the plebs is, oh, yeah, we're investigating Comey and Brennan, and we've sanctioned those Secret Service guards who nearly got the president murdered and got Corey Comparatore murdered and 2 others grievously injured.
Yes.
They get 10 to 42 days unpaid, whatever they call it, administrative leave.
It's awful. They should be rotting in prison for the rest of their lives.
There's something. There was more to the Butler assassination attempt, but we're led to believe also that's it was just a confluence of errors that who could have seen it happening. That perimeter that had the best vantage point for a sniper cut out of the perimeter. Who could have seen that coming?
Well, definitely not the Lady Ghostbusters, who are now going to have time to go make a sequel, I guess.
You imagine Trump in any alternate universe, that goes down the way whoever was planning it wanted it to go down. You got Nikki Haley and the other guy there, Pompeo, as the ticket for the Republicans. You're in World War III right now, a hot World War III, war with Iran. By the grace of God, Trump survived that. It doesn't mean that we're going to rely on the miracle to say everything Trump and the administration does is divine. The biggest mistake from the first term, bringing on the wrong people and listening to the wrong people. And it's a question of making sure that doesn't happen again right now. Yes, men are the most destructive forces for any company, for any business, and for any relationship for that matter. So you criticize where it's warranted, not for the purposes of destruction, but for the purposes of making better.
I could not agree with you more. We love the president and his administration. We know them personally, and we are giving them tough love, which is absolutely required. It's biblical, it's moral, it's just, and it's why God puts strong people in your life in order to tell you tough truths. And that's what we've been doing. I'll end with this because the team has said ALX sent it in as a final defense of himself and what he was reading. This is the letter. I don't think any of this happened, but here's the letter. By 8 a.m. tomorrow, February 28th, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including all recordings, documents, audio, video recordings, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regardless of how such information was obtained. There will be no withholdings, no limitations to your access. There it is.
May I just highlight one point, one word, 3 words, and his clients. This is not someone speaking without knowledge. This is not someone speaking out of her hat. And this is not someone speaking without having had any information or any prep. This letter was drafted and prepped. His clients. Wild. There's no clients.
Yeah, 3 months later, there's no clients.
no incriminating client list. So there might have been clients of blood. And then you expect people to swallow this. Like, oh no, when that interview that she did where she was answering, what's the reporter's name? I want to say it's the Fox News guy with the gray hair. But he's like, he says, Is it true that John Roberts, thank you. Is it true they're going to release the list of Epstein's clients? It's on my desk. She drafted this letter. Epstein and his clients. Oh, what did you mean by that? I meant business clients. I didn't mean trafficking clients.
Crazy. It's tough love. It's biblical. It's moral. You have an obligation to do it if you actually care about somebody. You don't just watch the people that you care about make mistakes or do things that can damage them. So that's what we're doing. Viva, everybody go. Speaking of love. Big fans of Viva. Viva's on his way to 1 million subs. Be there before he hits 1 million. Come on, get into that club, baby.
I don't know. I needled Elon the other day, so maybe I don't know if there's an algorithm to tweak. I'm joking, by the way. I think tough love on Elon as well. If you make accusations that Bannon is in the Epstein files after having apologized and retracted your Trump one, either put up the receipts or don't make those type of stupid comments. I doubt that Bannon's in there.
Yep, I feel that. All right. Thank you, Viva, and Godspeed, and everybody follow Viva and his show on Rumble, which is an absolute great time. We were on yesterday. Here's the Rumble page. There you go. Godspeed, man.
Thank you very much, Benny. Have a good one.